Today we gather in a powerful convergence, Father's Day and Juneteenth. One celebrates the role of fatherhood and family, and the other marks a delayed but powerful step towards freedom and liberation. For many, these observances are sources of joy, but for others, especially those of us shaped by histories of oppression, separation, and survival, they stir something deeper. They ask us to remember. They call us to heal, because within these two observances lies a shared thread: the disruption and ultimately the reclamation of family, identity, and freedom. June 19th, 1865. That's Juneteenth. It's the day the Union troops arrived in Galveston, Texas, and announced that all enslaved people were legally free. That announcement came more than 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation had already been signed. I'm gonna let that sit in. They were still slaves. They were still being used as slaves. They still had the understanding that they were slaves 2 years after they'd been set free. But by the time freedom was finally spoken in Texas, it was long overdue, and for many, tragically too late, because freedom came on paper before it ever reached the people. And in those 2.5 years and the centuries before, countless Black families had already been devastated. Children were torn from the arms of their mothers, fathers were sold like property, and women were denied the sacred role of freely nurturing their families. Their bodies and their voices were controlled, silenced, and commodified. But the violence of slavery didn't end at the body. It was an assault on the soul, a system of deliberate disconnection. It targeted the structure of identity, family, and community. Those who spoke the same language, shared cultural practices, or came from the same tribe were intentionally separated, scattered across plantations to destroy collective power. They were denied the right to grieve together, to worship together, to remember together. The strategy was cruel and calculated. Sever their ties so they forget who they are. American slavery wasn't only about forced labor. It was about disconnecting people from their lineage, their language, their God, and ultimately, themselves. It was a systematic attack on the human spirit, meant to fracture the most sacred of human bonds, family. And even when slavery ended, its legacy lived on through Jim Crow laws, through housing policies, incarceration systems, and welfare regulations that disrupted Black households, through media narratives that painted Black fathers as absent and Black families as broken. White America didn't just enslave bodies. It broke bonds and then blamed the brokenness on those it had wounded. And yet, despite centuries of trauma, erasure, false narratives, something divine endured. Even where names were erased and generations were scattered, the truth of our spiritual connection remained. A mother humming in the fields wasn't just surviving, she was remembering. A father sharing a story wasn't just passing time, he was preserving a legacy. Songs were sung, rhythms survived, prayers were whispered in the dark. The thread was never cut. As Myrtle Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity, reminds us, we are all threaded together in the one great life of God. That thread, that sacred thread of life, identity, and divine connection has never been severed. It moved through the breath, through the music, through the love that refused to die. Even today, it calls us not only to remember what was taken, but to reclaim what has always belonged to us: our families, our culture, our stories, our faith, and our freedom. I want to bring your attention to this, if it comes up. There it is. We are not what was done to us. We are the divine that cannot be undone. Yeah, let that sink in. You are the divine. I'm getting it back for you. There we go. You are more than what you've experienced. You are divine. That can never be undone. So, Father's Day. Yeah. So it's often filled with images of backyard barbecues and heartfelt cards and the celebration of strong, nurturing, fraternal, paternal figures. But for many, especially those in Black, Indigenous, and communities of color, this holiday also carries an ache. Beneath the surface of celebration lives the memory of what was denied, distorted, or forcibly taken. Under slavery, Black men were stripped of the right to legally marry or raise their own children. Their roles as protectors and providers was systematically dismantled. Fathers were routinely sold away from their families, sometimes never to be seen again. And these acts weren't unfortunate byproducts. They were deliberate tactics to weaken generational strength and erase Black masculine identity as nurturing and whole. And yet, again, the trauma didn't end with emancipation. In the decades that followed, media, policy, and public discourse, even if you turn on the TV now, it paints the Black father as absent, irresponsible, and predatory. A myth that's crafted not from truth, but from fear and control. And these harmful narratives were used to justify everything. Everything from discriminatory welfare laws to mass incarceration, further severing families under the guise of order. But fatherhood refused to die. It persisted in the voices of grandfathers, the care of uncles, the wisdom of pastors, the commitment of coaches, and the unwavering presence of chosen family, or like I like to call it, logical versus biological family. It showed up in midnight prayers, school pickups, handshakes, and lessons passed down, not always in words, but example. Fathering became a sacred act of resistance. Because fatherhood at its core is not just about biology or proximity. It is a spiritual principle. It is the embodiment of divine order, protection, guidance, and strength. One that lives not just in men, but in anyone who chooses to lead, uplift, and create safe ground for others to grow. The divine masculine. As Charles Fillmore put, man is not a beggar at the gate of God, but a son at home with his father. Now, this quote is not only about gender or theology, it's about spiritual belonging. It reminds us that we are not outsiders to our divine inheritance. We are not broken branches on the family tree. We are roots. We are seeds. We are fruit. No law can erase that. No history can revoke that. We are sons and daughters of a sacred source. We are ancestors in training. Think about it. We are ancestors in training. We are the evidence that fatherhood survived. And we carry that spiritual legacy forward with reverence, with resilience, and with power. At the heart of Unity's teachings is a profound, and liberating truth. We are not broken beings trying to become whole. We are already whole, already sacred, already enough. Our journey is not one of chasing worth, but of remembering it. Because we forget. Remember it. So often the world teaches us to identify ourselves by our wounds, by what happened to us, what was taken, what we lacked. But spirit does not define us by trauma. Spirit sees us through the lens of eternal truth, and that truth is this. We are divine beings clothed in human form, unfolding more of who we are with every breath. We are not what was done to us. We are what flows through us. The pain we carry may be real, but it is not the whole of us. The oppression our ancestors endured may shape our path, but it does not define our future. We are more than survival stories. We are sacred stories still being written. We sing about that here. Eric Butterworth a visionary in the unity movement and very impactful in our own senior minister's life. He said it the best. You are not a human being trying to be spiritual. You are a spiritual being unfolding in human experience. Or as Reverend Ken likes to kind of summarize it, you are not a human being have a spiritual experience. You are a spiritual being having a human one. This unfolding is not linear and it's not always easy. It requires courage to look back without being consumed, to reclaim what was silenced and to honor what we've been taught to hide, what they are currently trying to make us hide. But when we do the work, when we speak the names of our ancestors, affirm the families we were given or have chosen, and honor our lineage without shame or apology, we do more than heal. We transform. We break generational silence. We rewrite the meaning of family. We remember that the divine is not distant. It is alive and moving through us. To do this work is an act of sacred reclamation. It is not simply spiritual. It is revolutionary. And in that reclamation, we rise, not just as individuals, but as a collective truth, rooted, restored, and radiant in our remembering. For those of us shaped by broken systems and silenced histories, and for those committed to honoring our ancestors and the struggles they endured, I have 3 steps we can take toward healing and reclamation. Step number 1, eventually. There we go. Reclaim your spiritual lineage. You are more than what history tried to erase. You are not just a survivor of oppression. You are a continuation of divine intention. Many of us come from lineages that were intentionally distorted or hidden, but our roots are spiritual, not just genealogical. Even if names are missing or stories were lost, the essence of who you come from lives in your breath, your being, your brilliance. Your ancestors live in your breath, your being, and your brilliance. Howard Thurman wrote, "There is something in every one of you that waits and listens for the sound of the genuine in yourself." And that genuine is the call of your ancestors, the memory of your worth, and that sacred thread that's pulling you towards your full identity. So here is an affirmation that I want everyone to kind of look into. You can take a picture of the slide when I put it up. But if you affirm it daily, it will help you, okay? So I honor the wisdom of those who came before me. Can you say that with me? I honor the wisdom of those who came before me. You want to speak ancestral names out loud, even if they're very few, and know that divine mind remembers what the world forgets. Number 2, honor the Father energy within and around you. Father energy is not limited to a biological role. It is a spiritual force of stability, strength, and divine order. I grew up giving my single mother Father's Day and Mother's Day cards because that's who she was for me. And I know I'm not alone in that. I have many aunts who stepped up as fathers. Logical family aunts, of course. Godmothers and aunts aplenty. But we all have those women, men, both, all, that stand in the gap. Honor that energy. For many of us, it was unexpected that these people would surround us, that grandfather, that teacher, that aunt, that uncle, that coach, the neighbor, or even fathering ourselves. But that energy deserves recognition and reverence. Honor it. Rumi said, try not to resist the changes that come your way. Instead, let life live through you. To honor Father energy is to honor resilience, to acknowledge what did show up, even when systems tried to strip it away. So I have another affirmation for you. But first, I want you to take a second and reflect. Who guided or protected you in your life? Honor them and affirm, I embrace the divine Father energy that supports and sustains me. Can you know that? I embrace the divine Father energy that supports and sustains me. Bless the masculine within, regardless of gender or form. And then finally, number 3, let those stories go. Refuse to repeat harmful narratives. I could stand up here for hours telling you about all the wrong. And I think everybody in here has a story or 5 about all the wrong. But systems of oppression live on in the stories we repeat about ourselves, about our families, and about each other. Every time we say, well, he never showed up. Nah, he didn't stick around. Oh yeah, she ain't no good. We reinforce the lies that planted that trauma. Refuse to repeat them. Because in unity, we are taught that our thoughts and our words create our world. By recycling old stories, you are manifesting it in your life. To heal, we must speak truth, not just historical facts, but spiritual truth. Emmett Fox, who I had to look up, said it this way: it makes no difference what kind of past you've had. You can begin to create a new future this moment. This moment. Wait. This moment. And that's the thing. I know New Year's, right? Everybody has a resolution. Revolution and a resolution. Everybody wants to start new with the turning of the moon. Everybody wants to start new at the beginning of the month. Everybody wants to start new. But you can start new now. You can start new now. So let's do that. Let's create futures. Wait. Now. Let's create futures rooted in dignity, power, and love. And let those stories go. So, the narratives you speak, are they life-giving? Are you speaking affirmations of wholeness into your life? So I have an affirmation for you. I speak life into what has been silenced. Know that with me. I speak life into what has been silenced. So we have to remember that we, our lovely and perfectly perfect selves, we are the living embodiment of our ancestors' wildest dreams. Several generations ago, when your great, put some more greats on that, grandmother, grandfather was making choices about their lives, they couldn't begin to imagine you, the greatness that you are, the freedoms that you have. We walk in freedoms they were denied. We speak truths that they were punished for. And we have access to opportunities, mind you, maybe not all opportunities, but we have access to opportunities they couldn't even imagine. To exist with agency, voice, and dignity is not just a privilege, it is a sacred responsibility. We are the prayers of those who came before, but we also have to honor the possibility of those yet to come. Our task is not only to honor the legacy, but to live it fully with gratitude, courage, and clarity, and rooted in divine truth. Because we are called to move forward with reverence for that lineage and a deep commitment to the generations we're shaping. So just as our ancestors couldn't dream of us, our descendants are beyond our scope of imagining. So think about that. Think about your grandmother. Think about your grandfather. Now put yourself in their place. Can you imagine that conversation with your child, your great-grandchild, your great-great-grandniece or nephew? Think about the changes just in the last 40 years. Think about what will change 40 years from now. We have a responsibility to root our future in spiritual truth. With that in mind, we move to our final affirmation. And let's know this together. It's a long one. I am the living continuation of a sacred lineage. I reclaim what was stolen, remember what was forgotten, and rise rooted in truth. I am free. I am whole. I am divine. And if you don't remember any of the other affirmations today, remember this one. Because this is who we are. We are the continuation of a beautiful line of spiritual beings. We are the fruit of our ancestors' toil. And we are the hope of generations to come. Happy Juneteenth, happy Father's Day, and happy sacred remembering. Let's take that to our time of meditation.